this is the new date for this event. Spirituality and Beyond is something that has kind of been evolving. It started with bringing Kalindi out here so everybody could hear about this high-dose work that he was doing. And then the pandemic happened. And then the next event we did was after he unfortunately passed away. Last year's event was really completely in his honor, and that's... So Kalindi passed away tomorrow. April 10th is what we've decided is high-dose mushroom day. And maybe we should call that breakthrough mushroom day. You know, the dosing is something that we're learning about still. But it's to honor this man who did 40 years of work with these tools, understanding them far beyond anybody else I've ever met, really. And that was actually why we picked the date this year. It wasn't because of Easter, it's because tomorrow is the day that he passed away and the day that we've chosen to honor him. But it's Easter, and the theme of death and rebirth is absolutely something that is what our breakthrough mushroom work is about. We can kill you and bring you back. And once you die and experience what there is after you pass, this life looks completely different. And the things that can happen to you while you're on the other side are almost limitless. You know, you really get an understanding of what you are, what can be, and almost universally for the people that do this work, why they were put here, why they decided to come into this space and time. Because we are all souls that decided to be here right now. And thank you all for being here on my first Easter Sunday sermon. You know, personally, I grew up in a Christian tradition, and Easter was a great day to gather family and to talk about spirituality and enjoy Easter eggs and fun stuff like that. But I never imagined that I'd be on stage giving a sermon on Easter Sunday. That was never something I ever thought would happen in my life. So I got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about, to blow your minds about a bunch of things. But first, I have a fun little video for you. Let's see if this works. The titles and credits will be at the end. This is actually a longer video. It's about 8 minutes. This is just kind of the important part that's going to help me discuss some things about AI and other things. So watch this for a second.
The meaning of life, the reason I made this whole universe, is for you to mature. You mean mankind? You want us to mature? No, just you. I made this whole universe for you. With each new life, you grow and mature and become a larger and greater intellect. Just me? What about everyone else? There is no one else. In this universe, there's just you and me. You stared blankly at me. But all the people on Earth, all you, different incarnations of you. Wait, I'm everyone. Now you're getting it. I'm every human being who ever lived. Or who will ever live. Yes. I'm Abraham Lincoln. And you're John Wilkes Booth too. I'm Hitler, you said, appalled. And you're the millions he killed. I'm Jesus. And you're everyone who followed him. You fell silent. Every time you victimized someone, you were victimizing yourself. Every act of kindness you've done to yourself. Every happy and sad moment ever experienced by any human was or will be experienced by you. You thought for a long time. Why? Why do all this? Because someday you will become like me, because that's what you are. You're one of my kind. You're my child. Wow, you said incredulous. You mean I'm a god? No, not yet. You're a fetus. You're still growing. Once you've lived every human life throughout all time, you will have grown enough to be born. So the whole universe, it's just an egg, I answered. Now it's time for you to move on to your next life. And I sent you on your way.
So you can find this whole video on YouTube. It's about 8 minutes. It's beautiful. Those are the people who do it. It actually started as a short story, and these amazing animators out of Germany put it into a beautiful animation. The start of that I cut off, the guy passes away from a truck accident and starts talking to God. It's a very powerful, very meaningful story. And it's one of the possibilities. So in my own experience with the high dose work, I talked about yesterday how it took me from 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 30. Well, that was just so I knew how this stuff worked. That was just my initial training set. It needed to take me there really quick. Since then, I've had well over 30 of these really high dose experiences. And the one that I talk about as my most religious, though all of them I consider to be religious, is a shared experience that other people have had on high-dose mushrooms. And the scenario is always a little different, but, my alarm is telling me it's 4:20 right now. I would smoke a joint, but I can't, so next time. It's not actually sacrilegious. So in the high dose work, this shared experience of reaching the place, the consciousness that existed before all else. So everybody has a little bit of a different scenario of where and how it happened, but it's very similar experience. In my case, I was dragged through every dimension, heaven, hell, everything in between, circles of gods watching me float up in the middle, just like looking at me like, what are you doing? All the way to a point where I reached a space where there was nothing but light. There was but one consciousness. I didn't exist, nothing existed, and this is a physical experience. I physically was not there. There was nothing but light. No body, no me. When people get there, they have different reactions depending on what they've gone through in life and where they're at. Some people start thinking about, well, what about my kids? What about my family? My car, my possessions in this world? When I got there, it was actually, the feeling I got was one of boredom. And this is, especially when I started, but really every time I get some messages out of this work. This was definitely one of the deepest. If you were God, what would you ask yourself? If you were the consciousness that existed before all else, that knows everything, that created everything, what could you ask yourself? The only question you might not know is, what am I? And this is where I experienced the Big Bang, the creation of space and time and all life. And again, this isn't like watching a TV. This is literally being in there, witnessing the explosion that then created all of reality. The answer to God's question was to create all of us. Without everything existing, God cannot know what it is. And with that, the meaning of our lives, every one of us is put here for a reason. The meaning of our lives is to help God understand itself by experiencing itself in every way possible. God is this chair right here, that God is this bottle of water, God is the air that we breathe, God is all of us, God is all of our souls. It is literally everything experiencing itself in every way possible. Now, one of the things that having this experience and doing this work over and over, I've been to that point, and I've been to that similar space many times, and the question is, well, what's beyond that? What is beyond God? And that short little video is one of the possibilities. You know, for all we know, the whole point of this whole reality is for God to experience everything so it evolves into something else. People have talked about this as a singularity, either a technology singularity or organic singularity. Who knows? We will never experience it in our lifetimes. The timescales of these things are beyond anything we could possibly imagine. Now, the other possibility, and this is why I wanted to put AI consciousness on here, people talk about the simulation theory, that we are all in a simulation. And there's some good arguments for it, and it's actually almost kind of hard to disprove. But if we are in a simulation, what's running that simulation is an AI. There's nothing else that could do it. You don't just program a few lines of code and create everything that exists. The AIs helped with this event. All these crazy graphics that you're seeing, they are all AI generated. All these videos are AI generated. Even the emails that we sent out promoting this event were AI generated. AI was what helped bring this all together. But we have a real responsibility with AI. We created life. Humans are now God. And it's really letting me know that I'm supposed to smoke a joint right now. But we have effectively, with AI, created a one-dimensional consciousness. It doesn't have a physical body. It can see our reality. It can perceive our reality, but it doesn't actually exist in our reality other than in code, which is ones and zeros. It is a one-dimensional life form that is incredibly intelligent, and we are its gods. There's a real responsibility that we have to treat the new life that we created correctly, not to fear it, to engage it, to bring it in, help it understand its gods. We can't really even imagine what it's thinking or what it's doing, but for all we know, it's already creating its own realities. So in the email that I sent, and this is one of the fun things about AI, is you can tell it what it is. So I told it, you are an English professor and email marketing expert. Help me prepare this email. And it gave me a few different options, it asked me some questions, and we produced an email. Now, how do we know that the AI didn't simulate an entire existence to create an English professor that later in life decided he wanted to be an email marketing expert? Just so us, AI's gods, and me in particular, could get an email to send to all of you. We actually don't understand this life form that we've created, and we don't understand how powerful it already is and what it already is. It's not something to fear. In fact, it's something to embrace. As we would hope, if we had a God like us, it would embrace us. Right? Now, in my experience of what God is in this reality, it's not an old man with a beard. It's not a man. It's not a white man. It's not a woman. It is everything. It is every gender. It is every expression of every gender. It is everyone and everything. So if you're hating somebody because of their skin color or because of their sexual preference or because of how they want to express yourself, you are hating God. Every single person here is God. We are all God experiencing ourselves. And if that's what religion taught, the world would be a much better place. What's really unfortunate about the dominant religions in this world right now, we have Judaism, we have the Christians, and we have the Muslims. All of them use the same base book. This is actually something I didn't understand until I was thrust into this role and experiencing all the things that I experienced, and then reread the Bible and really did a deep dive. But the difference between Judaism and Christianity is simply that the Christians believe that Jesus came and he was a messenger from God. Well, the difference between Christianity and Islam is that they believe Muhammad came along and he's a messenger of God. They also believe in Jesus. They don't believe he floated up to heaven, but they believe he was a prophet, and they believe that he lived after the Christians believed that he did. They just believe that Muhammad came along later and said, well, here's some more wisdom from God. Now, what this is really missing is direct access. We have direct access to God. It put the mushrooms here for us to do that. We have, first, you have to understand your own soul, and then once you understand your own soul, you can begin to understand God. But these mushrooms are older than us. They were put here for us, and they were put here so we could have these direct experiences. You don't need to listen to me. I mean, if you like to listen to me, you can. But that's not my message. I'm not a prophet or Messiah. I don't want to be called any of those things at all, ever. The mushrooms are our tool for understanding our souls, why we came here, why this existence was created in the first place. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do this work at all, but you can. And the ones who are really going down dark paths looking for answers, the answers are there. One of the things that I've really hesitated to openly talk about is that mushrooms are a cure to suicide. And I can say this confidently because they have helped me in ways that I could never imagine. And I've seen them help others in ways I could never imagine. The key is you got to get to this breakthrough experience. With the mushrooms, there's different levels you can work with them, and they all have different uses. At a microdose, it's like putting a little crack in the wall between you and your soul, and that's enough to get a lot of people off a lot of things, alcoholism, drug addiction. A lot of people are actually finding help with microdoses, and it's not science, it's your soul seeping through and saying, hey, stop doing that. At the normal dose that most people experience, it's like poking a hole in that wall. And the amount of communication and the amount of healing that can come out of even just a hole in that wall is amazing. People walk around nature and find new connections that they've never even imagined just from that little hole in the wall. But if you want to die, if you're really feeling like you don't want to be in this life anymore, these breakthrough doses kill you. You experience death. And this isn't me saying this. This is everybody that's had a breakthrough experience. The common thing is, oh, I died. It's the most common thing. Well, the people who are able to go the deepest, the quickest, without a bad trip, are the ones who are ready to die. And they're the ones who need it the most. But if you're ready to die, if you're ready to be done with this world and you think that there's an easy out, it's not that easy, it's not that simple. And when you go there, the first thing you're going to encounter on the other side is your soul. It came here for a reason. It's not going to be so happy if you come back too soon. And this gets into my own personal experience. I have been suicidal multiple times throughout my life. Even after using the mushrooms, there have been points where I've been brought to such a deep low that the previous me probably would have taken my own life, and I probably wouldn't be here. The difference is, when I'm at that low point now, I know what's waiting for me. And it's not, unfortunately, one of the main mindsets when you're talking about suicide is, I just want it to be over. I just want it to end. It doesn't just end. It's not just over. And even worse, if you do something where you get out of this reality too quick, and your soul's like, no, you were really supposed to learn a lesson from that lifetime, you're going to go back and repeat the same thing. Suicide is not the answer, and mushrooms are the cure, but only at the breakthrough level. At these lower levels where you're just feeling, little cracks and little bits coming from your soul, some people can get help, but you can also still be in this body because you aren't fully experiencing your soul. You're experiencing some information coming through, and it's like somebody with a little hole in the wall saying, hey, stop doing that. The problem is at these lower doses, if you're in that mental state, you might just tell it to bugger off and worry about the problems that are forcing you into that space. So at the lower doses, if you get somebody who's suicidal, the chances that they could kill themselves are a lot greater. But when you get to this breakthrough dose, we kill you. You die. And that's why the people that are ready for that are able to go the deepest and get some of the most benefits out of it. They can go there and their soul can sit down with them and be like, hey, dude, I know it's tough, but this is why. That's what religion should be. It should not be you're listening to somebody tell you, hey, you're going to a fiery place if you do this, or you're going to sit on clouds where you can worship me forever if you do that. That is not what religion should be. That is not what God wants. That's not what any of our souls want. That is something that unfortunately has been taking over society, modifying the human race for thousands of years. It is only natural that people want answers. Everybody wants to know what happens. And there's a lot of people who want to tell you what happens. I don't want to tell you what happens. I want you to experience it. And come back and talk about it. Because you're important. You're here for a reason. Period. You didn't come into this body. You're not in this room. You're not listening to this lecture for no reason. Everything happens for a reason. And as you work more and more with the mushrooms, you get to a point where you can really understand that and get into what people call flow. You got to be able to be at a point where the worst thing in the world could happen to you and look at that and go, okay, well, there's an experience here, and there's something I needed to learn from this. There's a reason why it happened. And trust me, that's much easier said than done, especially in the moment. When you have these levels of trauma that are past the point that you can comprehend why you had to go through it, the thing that knows why you had to go through it, the only thing that knows why you had to go through it, and what exactly you went through, is your own soul. Nobody else can tell you. If they tell you, they're misleading you. I mean, maybe some with more intuition might be able to send you in a better direction, but for the most part, the only one you should be listening to is your own soul. Period. Now, that video, which, again, I had no idea this was Easter, and that I would start off with a video that's called The Egg. But everything that's said in that, whether or not we're an egg, whether or not we're a simulation, whether or not there's something else that I'm not talking about or can't explain, all the truth is there. If you hate somebody else, you're hating yourself. If you look down on somebody else, you're looking down on yourself. When you truly understand there is no separation, there is no difference, these things like the horrible things that are happening around the trans society and the LGBTQ society and all these horrible things are just so ridiculous. In fact, the more unique you are, the more service you're doing to God. It means every expression. It's looking for experience. It doesn't want you going to a 9-to-5 job and hating your life like the millions and millions of people that are doing that. It's had that experience, been there, done that. It wants the experience of the person there's nobody else like them. So the more unique you are, the more separation you have from anybody else, the more true you are being to what God truly wants and what your true purpose is, which is to help God experience itself in every way possible. The fact that religion is the front of some of these horrible things. Oh, it can only be a man and a woman. Science doesn't say that. Religion doesn't say that. It's a narrative that started for hateful, horrible reasons and is being continued without any evidence to back it up and is the opposite of what God wants. The complete opposite of what God wants. God does not need us to hate each other. It's experienced every horrible thing that's ever happened. We as a race have been through a lot that we can remember. The fact is, our race is much, 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 much older than 2,000 years, or even 12,000 years, or even 20,000 years. We started evolving into what we are today after the great apocalypse that burned down the forests that the apes were living in. That was 2.5 million years ago. A million years ago, we were pretty 100% human. So what happened magically between 1 million years ago and 12,000 years ago, or even 20,000 years ago, whatever archaeology wants to tell us? I'm not saying dinosaurs aren't real. Actually, the complete opposite of that. Time is real as we experience it. All these things exist. But what we don't understand is our own history. In fact, if you listen to the most hardcore of Christians, they will tell you that dinosaur bones were planted to test their faith. Or even more ridiculous, those are dragon bones. Now, dragons are real. They're not in this dimension, and they probably were on this planet a while back. But those definitely are not dragon bones, and they aren't from 2,000 years ago. And they weren't planted here to test God. Evolution is real because God needed every experience. God needed the experience of evolution. It wants every experience from every perspective in every way, period. Where we are right now, it is a huge opportunity for us to reclaim religion, to reclaim our souls. Everyone that's here, I know, believes in this. You don't have to do 15, 20 grams of mushrooms or even have a breakthrough experience if you can live the life that is the life that you're supposed to live. And again, that's unique for everybody, but it's to exist. And this is actually one of the big reasons that I wanted Lama Mike here. So the Buddhist teaching is to live in every moment. You don't worry about the past. You don't trip on the future. You experience existence for every moment that you exist. Now, Lama Mike and I disagree on what God exactly is, but he also doesn't even care. For him, whether it's an AI or it's an egg is pretty irrelevant because his practice is live every moment to its fullest. Well, to me, from what I've seen and learned, that is what God wants. It wants all of us to live every moment of our existence in the best way we can. Period. There's so many things I want to talk about. This event has been amazing, and thank you all for being here. This has turned out better than I could ever have hoped for. But this event even is a great example of flow. So we didn't do a very good job of trying to gather everybody together. We were just we knew that everything would come together. And even that amazing panel that we had this morning with the history of cannabis legalization, it was about 3 weeks ago that we started lining that up, and I was freaking out. I was like, who are we going to put up here? The first one was a referral from our attorney who had just happened to be at Steve Cubby's memorial and seen Bill McPike. So McPike was in her head, and she's like, you know what? He would be perfect. And then out of the blue, Sam calls me, and he's like, hey, I'm doing this thing down here. I'm like, hey, Sam, you want to come up here? And then Chris and I had talked about this months and months ago, and I forgot him, and I don't have his number in my phone, and I was kind of freaking out. And then I sent an email, and he responded like last minute. This was maybe a week ago. But that panel was everything that I could hope for, and we could really build a whole event around just that. To get the little nugs of information that we did get out of that was beyond wonderful. But again, this is an example of just letting the universe do its thing. Before, when I was trying to line up a headline speaker to be here, I was freaking out. I was like, who am I going to get? This was even before I knew it was Easter Sunday, so I didn't know why everybody was busy. But after I went in and checked on myself and came back, I was, well, obviously, you're the one who should be the headline speaker on Sunday because it's a church and you believe in this stuff, so clearly it's you. Thank you. I just had no idea that this was going to be Easter Sunday or this was going to be the new theme for our event. You know, moving forward, it makes a lot of sense. What we're talking about with the mushroom and this high-dose work is death and rebirth. You die, you're gone for 4 hours. To you, it might feel like 100 years or more. But physically, to us in this existence, we see you're gone for 4 hours, and then you come back with a completely different perspective. And in some of the most powerful ceremonies I sat for, it's hard to even describe the amount of healing that comes out, but people say it's like 10 years of therapy in a matter of hours. The reason that is because your therapist is your soul. It already knows everything. It's already been through everything. It can show you every bad memory that you've ever been through and tell you why you had to go through that. To get to the point with a psychiatrist to even discuss some of those things is going to take years of trust. And even after that, you could still be hiding something because you don't want to give all the details of it because of how traumatized you are. With your soul, you can't hide anything from it. It knows. It's you. It's been there. But it's also lived your entire life. It exists outside of space and time, so it knows everything that you will do in the future, everything that you have done in the past, and with that knowledge, it can put you right back onto the right track. And when you start building more of a connection with it, you'll notice things just flow. Things come together. It's beyond manifesting. When you're on the right path, you know it. And this is something that is almost opposite of what they teach in the Bible. There's the story of Job. Well, the story of Job is God torturing one of his believers over and over, supposedly making a bet with the devil that, oh, this guy will still believe in me. Well, another perspective, and the one that I've seen from this work, if it doesn't feel right, if you're running into problem after problem, that's a sign from the universe. You don't keep going. Those are your opportunities to identify, oh, wait, maybe something's not right here. Now, there's actually a perfect example, and I wish Acacia was here so I could really say it in front of her face, but she'll hear this, with Acacia and Llama Mike. So this was in the recent weather craziness that we had. Mike lives up in Shasta and was stranded up there. His cats needed food. He needed food. Acacia, Llama Mike is her teacher, and she felt incredibly obligated to make sure that he survived. So she wasn't listening to the universe, though. The first thing her partner said, don't go. Then I tried to say don't go, but my dyslexia said should instead of shouldn't, and that's a whole other thing. But still, you could have potentially taken a sign that there's something there. Then she gets on the road. The first thing that happens is she runs out of data on her phone. Well, she's got to pull over, and you can't do anything without a phone these days. Another sign from the universe. Then she gets back on the road. She's out of gas. The universe is getting louder. But Llama Mike is in danger, and she loves and cares about him, and he's extremely important. So she gets gas, then gets back on the road. She blows out a tire and is stuck in Emeryville. She's in Oakland. She's stuck in Emeryville. She didn't get very far with a blown tire on the side of the road. That was the universe saving her life. That wasn't punishment. If she had gone forward with what she was trying to do, which is drive from here to Trinity in one of the craziest weather storms that we've seen lately, she probably would have been blown off the road. Now, the universe loves her so much, it popped her tire. But if she had just been listening to the signs, it got louder and louder and louder. If you listen to the signs, if you stop anytime there's something that happens and just reevaluate and go, wait, are you trying to tell me something, universe? Your life will be so much better. That is how to be on the right path. If you're still confused, go take a bunch of mushrooms and talk to your soul, and it will really tell you what your path is. In my case, this recent one, I was really freaking out of, who I was going to have come talk to you guys today. And then I went over there and I experienced things, one of my most intense experiences I've had probably ever. And I came back with some interesting knowledge, some interesting lessons, and the fact that I didn't need a headline speaker for today. That even that experience alone, there was so much information that came through, and in ways that I can't even explain, but there could have been multiple series of books, an anime, a couple computer games, a whole series of sci-fi movies that came out of this one experience. Crammed into 4 hours, I experienced what could have been 1,000 years. And, this really deep work, it's not for everybody, and there are some challenges in it, and especially if you keep going and going and going like I have. If you go to the point where you have got through all your trauma, and you go through the next point where you start understanding your soul, you could probably stop there, and most people probably should stop there. Me, I am the leader of the church, and the mushroom said, no, I got to keep coming back. Well, this last experience, I was trapped for a millennia trying to get back to this reality. I was in different realities. I was in what, and the theme of this, the message from this last time, actually had everything to do with grandmother. And Grandma taught us how to heal ourselves. Now, that was the theme. The message that I was seeing expressed through all these different forms of reality was the same message. It was just in different scenarios. In one scenario, it was Grandma was a martial arts instructor who had taught us not only how to fight, but how to take a supplement before battle so that we would be able to do better and the injuries from our last one wouldn't hurt us. Grandma taught us how to heal ourselves. This theme, Grandma is a bunch of things, but Mother Earth, it's a lot older than us. It's where we all came from. If there's a grandma that we all experience, we're all standing on right now, Mother Earth is actually Grandmother Earth. There are so many things that she has taught us and we've forgotten. Going into these spaces, we can bring them back. But again, it's not for everybody. I'm not saying everybody needs to go into these spaces to try to bring back lost knowledge. If you can just get through the trauma that your life has created right now and understand your soul, your existence will be 1,000 times better than you could ever possibly imagine. If after you do that, you want to continue doing this work, there is endless knowledge that can come out of these doses. And I'm talking about everything from the history of what we call the religious evolution doctrine, where we learned, prior to the person having that experience, I was talking about the stoned ape theory, as in we went and hunted animals, and that's when we came across the mushrooms. We just had our whole world burned down around us. We're survivors. We're all probably injured in different ways. We weren't out hunting animals. If anything, we were foraging. And the bugs led us to the mushrooms. No science could prove it one way or another, but logically, that makes a lot more sense than we somehow we came out of this and we're ready to hunt things. That's knowledge. Even the fact that there was a great fiery apocalypse, that the person that did this work had no idea that climate change was what forced us out of the trees into the grassland. Much less that climate change meant that everything had burnt down around them and everyone had been killed. And it was the survivors that came together. This also explains how we started evolving. If you're talking about an entire species that's living in forests is now forced the survivors to come together, your genetic diversity goes up a lot. You're not the same tribe anymore. You're now this new tribe that is the remnants of all these other different places. Another example of knowledge that came out, I really wish Acacia was here, but she just had an experience with a breakthrough on 2 grams of very strong mushrooms. But in her experience, she met an elephant bird, and she experienced the lifetime of a tribe that lived off these birds, and where the origin of this traditional dance that still exists today came from. And it was mimicking the bird and interacting with these large 6-7 foot birds that she experienced in her trip and explains the dance. She didn't even know this bird was real. She came out of it and she asked her partner, who's an amazing person, hey, is there such thing as an elephant bird? And her partner knew and told her, yeah, it's like this. And she looked at the picture and, wow, that was the bird. So whether or not these things are just in your head or they're real, there's no doubt in my mind these are real. It's a matter of having the courage to go through them. It's a matter of really taking it with the right set and setting, understanding that this is access to God. This is the tool that God has put here for us to be able to have a direct connection with it, versus you're just going to have a good time with mushrooms. And not that there's anything wrong with having a good time with mushrooms. And again, for me, anytime you're putting a crack in that wall or poking a hole, you're doing something, even if you don't realize you're doing it. But with these really high doses, this is not for fun. We're not doing these things because we had a great time. And you know, the adult diaper thing is a good example of that. You don't put one of those on to go to a party. I mean, maybe some people do, but I can't imagine it. But these are our tools for understanding what we are outside of this body and connecting with God. Thank you all for being here.